if you look at the screen, you'll see that the arms we're seeing have police emblems. So it's a challenge for me. And then, but let's leave it at that and say kudos to the police force. But
yeah.
maybe we need more evidence, more of this, so that others will be scared and know that, look, they actually know your hideout. Why are we not seeing jets going around, taking helicopters, taking coverage of these things, giving us pictorial evidence, video evidence? Let's be sure that these are going on, and others will be scared.
Okay, Vice President. So, a few days ago, I think sometime last week and yesterday or thereabouts, we've been talking about this thing, and I've always wondered. This is 2023. Drone is not one of the most expensive smart devices that the Nigerian army cannot afford. Okay, but these are things that even individuals own. And there are several other smart devices that can capture the scene of an operation, yeah? The first one they did sometime last week, IPOB came out to say, nah, you don't know where we are. You can't find us. That's not even correct. Okay. They didn't say anything to that because we were wondering. They said they did one in Anambra and in, I think in Teobom or somewhere in Imo State, and they'll put all of that together. So let's look at the human angle aspect of this. Saw some guys on the screen. I don't know what about them makes them IPOB. I don't know if IPOB have a form of identification card that they carry about. So when you see someone like, I have my official ID card, it's okay, this is it. Here's a concern. Every time the Nigerian army comes out to say, we have destroyed. For instance, I want to see shrines.
Exactly my point.
But again, help us understand. If I have a shrine and I'm wearing some amulets around me, my neck, that's a form of religion, isn't it?
It is.
I thought we have freedom of religion in this country. So what is exactly, those guys that we saw on the screen, that's the average Nigerian guy.
Of course.
That could be any of you, maybe if you had cut your hair or you're as big as some of them. So the point is, I ask, and I keep asking until maybe I get a plausible answer. Maybe if I can get the Nigerian Army PRO or someone to talk about some of this. And so the question again I'm asking, I say I will keep asking, how do you identify an IPOB member? We have said here, shrine, owning a shrine is a form of worship, is a form of faith expression. We have freedom of religion in this country, yes. Right? Good. So the guns we saw in the picture, they have Nigerian Army color.
Exactly.
So how do you identify an IPOB member? How do you know that this belongs to an IPOB? Because there's been an attack in the southeast, and this attack is being is even alleged to be destroying IPOB camps. So how do we identify these things, if you may?
Well, it's I don't want to give a lead, but then
if there is, okay, have some of us who are confused.
When you talk of the Biafran movement or they have a flag. Mm-hmm. If, for instance, when the Boko Haram carry on their activities and we see videos, you hear them speak Allah, Koba, sometimes you hear them, so you just know that this is whom they are. Mm-hmm. You don't need further introduction. Yeah. They're even speaking, you hear it. Mm-hmm. Now, here we go. We see a picture with a police or a military gun, some young men injured. And then the story reads they ran away with injured wounds. But we now see them seated. Now, you show us a fallen roof. You don't show us a shrine.
And that roof is not in a bush, by the way. That's the normal community in the southeast.
Exactly my point. So can we stop the joke and get serious with business?
Okay.
If we want to get IPOB members, please, let's have an form of identity. They have a flag. They have many things. And then let's know what we are dealing with. Tell us the location. Tell us the places. You've mentioned some names we don't know those people. We don't know those names. So if they are going to do some work, I think it's going to really be good if the Joint Task Force up their game, puts up video evidence and everything so that people will see it. And then this will know that actually people are watching them and people are coming after them. So Nigerians will feel more secure when they move through the east and so on. So that's my view on that.
Okay. So another aspect of this conversation is That's what I talked about. Cups, some cups were recovered, some shrines. Okay, there's no video.
Yes.
There is no evidence, no picture, no nothing. At least as at the point when this report was filed
Yes.
in. Do you think or will it be safe to tell the Nigerian army to literally, or the Nigerian security agencies to up their game, that this is 2023? Would that be safe to call the attention on the need for that?
Definitely. That's what I'm calling for. Up your game. When you go for such action, there should be videos. There should be drones flying in the air. There should be pictures taken. Even of the officers carrying out the action. If you want to be marked or something, I don't know, but something should... Let's know something is going on. For crying out loud, it's not a war. Even the war in Ukraine, we see videos. Yeah. There's a blast, and we see a video of the blast. So if you're going into such a kind of sting action, let's have this thing. So we know that, yes, the Nigerian task force, the joint task force is working, and this is where they are. This is what they have done. It's publicized, not just by the force itself, but by every station. People see it as, okay, this is where we are. This is 2023, and the social media, the media is actually active. So there's no hiding place for criminals. That's my advice to our military system.
Okay, just before, I have a quick question too on this whole IPOB movement and all of that. Yeah, there's need for the Nigerian army to up their game, like you said. Now, how much should they also involve communities before these actions are carried out?
Well, the challenge with involving communities, some of them will say, is when you inform one person in the community, the information goes wrong. But it still doesn't...
in terms of safety of those,
safety,
yes.
And so on. So it still doesn't take away the fact that some key officers of the community should be aware of some of their activities, so that you don't just get into a place, blow up things, and injure innocent persons. So communities should be aware. You should be able to carry out intelligence activities. You don't need to tell a date when you're coming for the action. But at least that will be sensitized to stay away from such areas.
And then beyond staying away from such areas, there's also this aspect of this vegetations being destroyed. Because right now we're sitting down here talking about something that happened somewhere in Imo State, for instance, and we don't even know what kind of weapon, what kind of ammunition is being used in destroying the so-called, the Nigerian Air Force did theirs the other time, and they said the Air Force, the Air Force, ABC, and all of that. So what is being destroyed in terms of vegetation right now? How much information do we have on hand to say this is what the army is doing, this is what the weapons they are using, because they are the ones telling that they are destroying. So we don't know. Is it also safe for us to demand to say some form of accountability in carrying out this process, especially when it comes to the vegetations in this area?
Well, that's a key part of security and economy that we hardly look into in Africa. Take, for instance, when the U.S. invaded Iraq. Before the invasion, there was provision for rehabilitation. So when such activities go on, there was once they were destroying these refineries, these local refineries.
Yeah.
And then they burn up the system. Yeah. And everywhere we had this black soot and so on. And there was hardly a provision to remedy the health of people. Now, the same thing is likely to play out when you go to such communities and carry out those activities. Let's say you burn down their shrines, you burn down this and that. You'll be destroying vegetation and everything. That's part of why there should be transparency in it. So that if there's transparency, okay, when we carried out this activity, we stepped into 2, 3, 4 persons and farmlands. Now, the government is to pay for those things. We have made so and so provision to pay the owners of those farmlands this sort of money. I think those activities, that's part of why there should be pictures and evidence. So that these owners of the community can say, when you moved on to carry out this activity against me, you passed through my farmland, what is my compensation? And the person could come and say, okay, though my properties are whatever are worth so and so, I am stepping down because I'm also interested in the security of my place. But there should be a provision to remedy or provide a remedy for the communities that are suffering loss as a result of these activities. Don't forget, the communities are also suffering from the activities of these criminals.
Absolutely. Now, the interesting part of all of these Southeast IPOD conversation, I don't know if you have noticed, is the fact that there's no talk about any form of mediation. There's no talk about, let's even, guys, come, let's have your key leaders on the drawing table. What exactly is the reason for, what's your grievance? And begin to have that conversation. Ohaneze asked them to look into, as the federal government, to look into releasing Nnamdi Kanu and the request for Sunday Igboho, for instance. Do you somehow think that in all of this, we may be looking at a situation where the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will begin to consider making good his promise to, negotiate with these people when he gets into office? That was part of his campaign promise. And then do you think we need to begin to ask for, instead of this constant, killing, corpses, destroying, and all of that, that there may be time to come to the drawing table to say what exactly is the issue?
Well, definitely, I believe it is time for the president to plunge into such a negotiation. And then just while we were talking, something dropped in my mind. I'm just saying, look, my legal mind tells me some person may start cooking up legal actions already. And Amnesty International have some suits. You've killed so. So why carrying out so action? You've not done anything for these people. So some legal actions may even start coming up against the Nigerian military. It's a matter of time, or against the federal government. Take, for instance, Igbesu boys arose sometime in the late 90s against the federal government, military, and so on. And then the Basanjo-led administration released the army into OD and destroyed the community because of the activities of the Igbesu boys.
Yeah.
Remember, a legal action was filed against the federal government, and about 80-something billion naira was paid to the community. So that's part of why the military should be careful. Get pictorial evidence, get video evidence, make a provision to compensate these communities you're going to destroy these things in, so that people don't rise up against you. And then the federal government should play a key role. Let's get to these communities. Let's call these guys out. Can we talk? What is your issue? Yes, there is a Nnamdi Kanu issue on ground. And then, but there are other persons you need to communicate with. And let's resolve this issue once and for all, so that we don't get into expenses that have not been budgeted for.
All right, let's get into the next side of the conversation this morning. A probe panel set up by the University of Calabar to investigate allegations of sexual harassment of female students by the suspended Dean of the School's Faculty of Law, University of Calabar, Professor Cyril Ndifon, has found the senior lecturer guilty of gross misconduct. In the report of the panel set up to investigate alleged misconduct, sexual harassment, and abuse of office leveled against Professor Ndifon, it established that the suspended Dean, Professor Cyril Ndifon, was using his official position to both intimidate and bargain for sexual favor from female students in the Faculty of Law. It also established that the suspended Dean had been involved in student exploitation and had been perpetrating cruelty against students by forestalling the graduation of some female students at the appropriate time by withholding and refusing to release their results and threatening some that they would never graduate from the faculty or go to the law school. Earlier in September, Ndifon failed to appear before the panel constituted to investigate the allegations against him after the school Vice Chancellor Professor Florence Obi constituted the administrative panel to thoroughly investigate the allegations against Ndifon. The panel relied on oral and written submissions and physical and virtual participation from victims and fellow lecturers, including professors and the president of the law student panel. Further established that the suspended dean was compelling the law students to pay for a faculty journal that was non-existent for 3 consecutive academic sessions. Therefore, the panel recommended that the suspended dean of law should face the statutory disciplinary committee of the University of Calabar for appropriate sanctions applicable to acts of both major and gross misconduct. The lack of consequence management across board in Nigeria, to a lot of observers, said has been a major Achilles heel in our development as a people. So if the students hadn't come out to take their fate in their hand, to take their chances and demand for the needful to be done. University of Calabar, as much as we applaud the fact, appreciate the fact that, oh, panel has been able to bring us something, you mean that if the students had decided to stay in fear, this would have continued for God knows how long? So I would like you to come in here to talk to us about the lack of mechanism, transparent and effective mechanism to manage some of the excesses you find in Nigerian universities.
Okay, well, coincidentally, I am a university child. You know, those of us who primary, secondary, university, were in one particular university and so on. Although I didn't do primary, but secondary university and so on. By reason of my parents' involvement in universities. So I'm not a stranger to these issues. I am very familiar to them. And I can tell you for free, that these issues are real on various public institutions. Maybe in some private, I don't know, but for the public institutions, it's a common denominator. Now, the challenge there is basically that most of the time, when students get involved in this, they don't report. I had a little of activism in school. Some of them will come to me and say, look, this is what it is. I say, can I speak up? And they say no. Because they are scared. If you speak up, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. But anyone that agrees for me to speak up, when I speak up, actually nothing happens. There was one I called, I said, you are the faculty officer. So person told me you demanded that she rents a hotel for you. I'm demanding now that you kindly release her matriculation number to her, otherwise I will report you to the VC. He released her number and didn't demand for all of this stuff again. So students speaking up is an issue. But then, are there mechanisms for check? Yes.
Yeah, but how transparent and effective are these mechanisms?
That's where the problem is. Because there is, let's assume the faculty officer who is supposed to be taking care of students' complaints is not the one involved in it. You step it up to the HOD. You find out HOD is involved. You step up to the dean. You find out dean is involved. You step it up to VC. VC is a friend of the dean. So there's a problem here. And that's why what I advise students basically is when you get any of those issues, blow it out. You're telling the faculty officer, tell the entire faculty. Blow it out. If you need to do a letter, if you need to do a petition, blow it out at offer. Don't just say, I'm telling faculty and you're relaxed. Blow it out. Don't be scared. SUG, whatever authority is, just make out the noise. Because if you tell one person, usually they have cabals, they have connections here and there. So that's the challenge. But Professor Ndufo is been held responsible now, and I pray that many others will be held responsible. Because are there mechanisms? Yes, there are. But the efficacy of these mechanisms is usually the issue. And like we usually say, it's a Nigerian thing.
Okay, I know my colleague is itching I know my colleague is itching to come in here. Okay, why don't you go ahead? Because my head is really woozy in all of this. Because there is an aspect of this, but let me not preempt his thought.
The issue there again is that one begins to wonder when all of this is going to stop. Because the issue of discipline and integrity comes to play. Yes. For the fact that you are a lecturer, first of all, there is this personality that you're supposed to carry, that you project, okay? And then even if you're not married, okay, that's still not an excuse, okay? Because what you are in there for is on the matters of academics. So, and we've had issues of this same matter coming in several institutions here in Nigeria. And we expected that by now it should have been something already buried. But here we are having someone of that integrity. You could see his personality, and if these issues didn't come out, there's no way you would have believed that such a person of that, magnitude would have been involved in such a demeaning a crime like that. So the question is, how can we check the lecturers? How can we? Are there no regulations? Are there no laws that can be put while they are being appointed as lecturers, where they are being admitted as lecturers, for them to kind of be mindful that in case you fall victim or you are found wanting in this kind of scenes
to them? Well, I I have personally read such regulations. I don't know if there's any institution that doesn't have such a regulation. I have read the one of RSU at the Rivers State University. I have read it. So there are lots of them. There are lots of them. The question now is the implementation. Now, I've had to talk with one or two parents and say, look, sometimes the problem is not even just on the part of the lecturers, that the students even come in to say, I can offer this for this. So,
Are you like?
yes, I've talked to some of them, and I've been involved in some of these things, and sometimes, when you're a student leader, at some point, you hear lots of stories. You come up, and I've had to speak up against some lecturers, to speak up against some faculty officers and so on. Like I mentioned one. I called this person, I mentioned me. He said, I know. I said, yes, I know you know me. This is my name. My name is Precious John Mark, and this is what I was told that you are doing. So stop. You understand? So, but you hear these stories side by side, from this angle, from that angle, and then we just, are there measures to check them? Yes, but who is to take the bull by the horn? Yes.
Fortunately, he didn't appear before the panel. He refused to appear before the panel.
That's criminal.
Let me ask you a quick question. So a lot of persons will not like where I'm going to, but it's also good I'm a female and I'm the one raising this concern on live television. When you go to school, my integrity is my integrity. Your integrity is your integrity, just like his, and all discipline at different points. So when you go to school, you refuse to study, you refuse to go to class, you refuse to do the needful, and then you find a lecturer who is willing to collect money from you to pass you, or who is willing to sleep with you in this case to pass you, because let's look at this side from side by side. A lot of people see, oh, he's still the older person, he shouldn't take advantage of the person. Can we also begin to look at medicine students?
Yes. Yes. Step to call out students who do this is another angle to it. I have not read a particular regulation that talks about the student angle. I've only read the one that talks about the lecturer's angle.
But which is not balanced.
Yes, it's not balanced.
Because so we know that there are students who make this offer to lecturers.
Yes, there are. Like I said, I'm not a stranger to students. Have come to me to say, look, we know that you're connected to this man. I don't want to be very specific. We know you're connected to this man by your surname. We can see it. And so, can we offer so? And so, and I will smile. And I was like, okay, what do you want? And they won't be shy about those. I was okay, no problems. I don't do such. Have you ever seen me go to him? I don't go to him. So, I don't do such. Go and read for your exams. I don't know what you're talking about. But on a normal day, that statement on its own is a crime. You will discover that commissioners will wake up. The VC stands up to say, this must, for instance, the VC has set up a panel, and this professor did not appear. What steps has the VC taken? She needs to stand up and say, other professors will wake up to their responsibility. And I can tell you for free, because this matter is on air, other professors and HODs and deans are already on their toes. They're on their toes. So the VC needs to take she needs to push it to the end. Prof needs to push the end so that this particular professor will face the music and others will learn from it. When somebody stands up to the others...
Sorry, Barrister John Mark. You do realize that there are people who have benefited from this process and they kept mum?
Definitely.
Over the years?
Over the years.
Good. You do realize that if we were saying charge him, he should also be allowed to give those names. Those names they found that over the years he's been having sexual relations and collecting money. Because that's a panel. So the panel, what it means is there are people who actually knew that this was wrong and they agreed to do it with the prof. So you do realize that all these other people, we should also be calling for them to be questioned or prosecuted because they also committed a crime.
Yes, I agree with you, but there's an angle to it.
Okay.
There's the angle of undue influence.
No, undue influence that you're a beneficiary of.
And you got a grade for it.
That's the point. And that is the grade you're using to parade your certification right now as a lawyer somewhere, who knows where.
Yes. That's a big one. That's a big one because...
No, because how do we check the... See, I keep saying that. If there is no student who is available, your certification or whatever it is, there will be few lecturers. Because even when they do, I mean, imagine coming to me and telling me you want to sleep with me, for instance, in order to... It's difficult because what we are looking for, but let's also realize that.
The students who make themselves available.
Yes, and this is also how this thing becomes a thing. So for a lecturer to come to you, an A student, and say, I want to sleep, there are very few occasions where you find such things.
True.
Because those lecturers know that Precious is not going to, they don't even have that conversation with them.
True.
So, because I keep saying that every time we look at issue from, that's Professor Ndifon, let's kill him. But we are not solving the actual problem in the store. But you also realize something is missing, which is the fact that the school is not telling us what will happen to those people that have benefited from him over the years. If you say he committed a crime, remember that he committed a crime with students. Certification has been given to people who should maybe even deserve it. So,
my mind just reminds me of, I've just remembered the fact that academic certificates in Nigeria issued to students who are fit in character and learning.
Thank you.
And the school also reserves the right to withdraw your certificate in the event it is found that your certificate was obtained without character. So the school also still has that right. So when the panel comes up and they hear him out, they could go into all of that and
he refused to appear before the panel.
Oh, he doesn't have the right to refuse.
If
he has refused, in court system, we'll say hearing notices.
You know, he went to you recall that when the panel was set up, he instead took the school to the industrial court.
Problems. Will the industrial court at this point have jurisdiction? Is another thing. Because they're likely to send him back to the panel. The industrial is likely to send him back to the panel. Because you belong to an institution, you must exhaust the provisions of that institution. There's a regulation for that institution. You must, because if the school doesn't exhaust the regulations of the school and goes to industrial court, the industrial court will lack jurisdiction over that matter because you need to exhaust your the regulations of the school. So it's the same thing is going to apply to him. They'll send him back. And then at the end of the day, he's still going to face the music, whether he likes it or not. That's the truth. But just the angle you brought up to say the school can bring up those students and call them to answer for their actions.
All right. So let's quickly, do we have some concerns about the way students dress? You know, because I know some institutions that go on uniforms, just to help check things. Maybe because of some sort of indecent dress in school. We also see from that angle that high institutions should also consider coming up with uniforms that could help checkmate this.
Very powerful point. You're talking of Faculty of Law, for instance. We already have a uniform. I'm a lawyer, so from year one, you know you have a uniform to wear. So if you look at it, you won't see any girl dressed indecently amongst law students, it's difficult to have that. So what caused this is obviously not indecent dressing. And that's not to say that indecent dress is not an issue in the universities. And several universities have taken stands on that matter. So that is already in the pipeline.
All right, let's move on to our point of discussion this morning. Traditional rulers from Owerri senatorial zone of Imo State have called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to free the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, from detention, saying that his release will reduce the insecurity in the southeast region. They also urged the southeast governors to explore all the channels of effecting the release of the Biafra agitator. We are also appealing to the politicians vying for public office this forthcoming November 11 Imo governorship elections to guard their comments and prevent the state from sliding into crisis. He urged them to avoid commenting on issues of insecurity and loss of lives as a campaign message. He added that the business of tackling insecurity should be everyone's concern and for reason should not be left to the government alone. Meanwhile, the royal fathers have commended the Imo State Governor, Senator Hope Uzodinma, for successfully hosting the Southeast Economic and Security Summit held in Owerri, which they said was timely and apt. That's a good one. We're still talking about insecurity. Yes. And then we need not just the federal government to know that this could be of help, because it's obviously why all of this seems to be springing up, the issue of Nnamdi Kanu. But is it a general taking that his release could help ameliorate the issue of insecurity?
Well, we won't be able to provide a yes or no answer to this, but we could say, why has there been Monday sit at home in the southeast? Is because of his detention. The idea to say unlawful detention, because there are court orders calling for his release and not having him released. And then so this continuous detention and all of the rest, it's obviously worsening the situation of insecurity. Obviously, the agitators and so on. But the next question they will want to say, maybe the military and security want to say, or federal want to say, is if you release him, he's likely going to carry on activity around there. But that you can't say for now. So I want to say, I think the orders of courts should be obeyed. Let this man be released. Let this man be released. And you still have your security apparatus to check him. The Nigerian military, for crying out loud, is powerful enough to check it. But don't hold somebody without court order, without lawful orders. Courts have held, release this man, release him. Let him come to court and answer for his crime. Detention of somebody is against his fundamental human right, for crying out loud. It's uncalled for, it's unnecessary. You can release him, you can check his activity. You can even check his communications. Wherever you can put an electronic ban on his hand, for crying out loud. Yes. You can monitor his going out and coming in. Why are you the federal government? Do you need to keep him in one particular place unlawfully and heighten tension all over the southeast? I think it's not necessary. It's avoidable. I think his release will actually help. That's my thinking, even though I'm not a security expert.
All right, a quick one still on this subject matter. You've talked to you just like several pundits who are observers of political issues. They've also said yes, there is need to release Nnamdi Kanu. However, seeing the move Nnamdi Kanu have made in terms of ensuring that first of all the sit at home comes to an end, ensuring that the manipulation being carried out by Simon Ekpa using the group that he's leading, being IPOB, is also put to a notch by writing with a handwritten letters to the press saying, asking his people to sheath their sword. This is not what we're about and all of that. Has Nnamdi Kanu, with this particular action that has led to the effective, to a large extent, end to the sit at home, has Nnamdi Kanu not shown the government of Nigeria that, hey, this is not what I'm about? If that is not enough, what do you think will be enough to let this man go? Because President Tinubu did promise that he's going to obey the rule of law, but we are looking at that, like you said, this is the rule of law and it's not being obeyed. So his efforts to end that, Is it not proactive enough? Is it not good enough for the government to say, if this guy can do this, it shows that he wants peace, for them to say, okay, let this guy go?
What I totally agree with you. I think he has done enough to let them know that, look, release me. I'm not, yes, I'm agitating for in a new nation within Nigeria, which is his right. You have your, but although there's a way to go about it, and the federal government feels he has reached, he has gone beyond his bounds and all of them. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about his release. It's his fundamental. You see, nobody's fundamental human right should be breached. It's an inalienable right. It should never be taken. He should be released to go. He has shown good cause why he ought to have been released. He has shown good faith. So release him first, and let's see if he will not show up for his trials. What's the essence of detention? It's so that he will show up during trial. But if he really, and he fails to show up during trial, you can revoke the bail. You can revoke the bail. And then we now know that you're justified in holding him back. But for now, there is no such justification.
Right, so thank you. We'll take a short break, everyone. When we come back, we'll be looking at issue around nation building. Khan is asking Nigerians to reflect on unity, not on diversity. Interesting conversation, but that will be after the break. Welcome back. You are still watching Atlantic Television Network Blowout, where we blow out on core issues in the news. I believe that. So now, the Christian Association of Nigeria and Niger has admonished Nigerians to reflect more on what unites the country rather than what divides it. Reverend Bulus Yohana, chairman of Khan in Niger State, they said this at the 63rd Independence Day prayer section, organized by the state chapter of Khan in Mina. Johanna, in his message tagged, let us focus on what unites us more as a people, advocated the need for Nigerians to live as an indivisible entity where peace, justice, equity, and fairness abound. According to him, the oneness of Nigeria remains more advantageous despite the challenges we are facing as a nation. He also advised Nigerians to remain supportive, either as individual or collectively, towards nation building to move the country forward. Everyone talks about unity. Now, he's saying that let's talk about what unites us more than what divides us. Everyone keeps talking about this. We just talked about Nnamdi Kanu, for instance. With the birth of Nnamdi Kanu in terms of his ideology, it's because there is something that divides us. Like we said, this is not being addressed. Sunday Igboho is somewhere in the southwest saying, hey, we need to go. This is not what we're about. And the Odua Republic people. If you put all of this side by side and then you ask yourself, why do we always talk about uniting and not addressing the issues that seem to be dividing us?
Well, they say presumption is the worst form of knowledge, or assumption is the worst form of knowledge, rather. So there is an assumption that our leaders tend to go in with. Sometimes some people will say it's because of the benefits they get sitting up there. But I think it will be beneficial, or it's more of a problem-solving strategy to know the problem, discuss it, then you get out a solution. So the challenge has been these people, to an extent, have not been given listening ears to, and that has been a major problem. There was this, I think Goodluck Jonathan led Confab. Was it on Pastor Joy?
No, it is.
Goodluck Jonathan, yes.
Yeah.
Now, so I think such reports should be made public. Let the Arewa come up and speak. Let the Oduduwa speak. Let the Biafra speak. There we will see what will unite us. We can pick out what will unite us more than what will divide us. What has basically kept us going, if you want to see Nigeria's unity now, is let Super Eagles play a football match. You will see we are one. But by the time the match is over, everybody goes back to language and everything. So I think we need such, we need a national discussion so we can pick out the things that unite us. Beyond religion and ethnicity, there are lots of things that unite us. The roads, the road constructions, everything. Even he's from Niger, or Niger rather, Niger State, and he's a Christian. I am River State. I'm a Christian. It's a unifying factor. Can cut across Nigeria. It's a unifying factor. The same with the Islamic bodies. They are all unifying factors. Then we have the agricultural aspect of it. What the North produces is different from what the West produces, and what the West produces is different from what the South produces. Same thing with the East. So if we have all of these factors checked, I believe we can work better as one nation. We can work better. There is power in unity.
All right, thank you.
To the next one on the table, we have the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has secured an arrest warrant for former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Desiani Alison Madueke. EFCC acting spokesman, Dele Oye Wale, confirmed the development to newsmen on Monday. Meanwhile, the anti-graft agency has also initiated extradition proceedings to bring former minister back to Nigeria. Recall that Alison Madueke was arraigned today at the Westminster Magistrates Court in London, United Kingdom, following alleged bribery allegations. The charges preferred against her at the London court are different from the 13-count charge bordering on money laundering the EFCC had leveled against her. EFCC further stated it is instructive to note that criminality is criminality, irrespective of jurisdictional differences. No crime can go unpunished. The money laundering charges for which Madueke is answerable to the EFCC cover jurisdictions in Dubai, United Kingdom, United States of America, and Nigeria. To bring the former minister to trial in Nigeria, an arrest warrant has been obtained and extradition proceedings have been initiated. The Commission is on course on her trial. She will soon have a day in our courts, he added. This is a very interesting movie, so to say. Yes, it goes to mean that Nigeria is actually a place where you can totally be sure that you may not go scot-free with your crimes. Yes, and so we have Alison Madueke at this point in time supposed to be extradited to face some criminal proceedings, with regards to the crime of money laundering and all of that. So how do we totally have to commend commend EFCC and also the judiciary for this?
Okay, well, let's commend the EFCC. Personally, I believe the EFCC have been empowered with everything it takes to prosecute financial crime in Nigeria. It's such a powerful institution that most Nigerians don't know how powerful the EFCC is. They have access, once a report is made to the EFCC, they have access to your DNA. Literally, everything about you, they can get you wherever you are. Now, but most of the time, it is not being utilized because of maybe the political affiliations of some of these people. Thank God we have Alison Madueke now in the picture. Money laundering is such a big crime that I could say 80 to 90% of our politicians could be roped into. Yes, because, for instance, you deal with the fact of obtaining, you're not to render, you're not to give beyond 5 million naira cash. Once you do that, it's an offense under the money laundering. You don't give 5 million naira cash. Now, during the elections, did we see beyond that? So, how many persons have been prosecuted for that? Nobody. Literally, nobody. Then you move on to the issue of proceeds from a crime. And there are lots of angles. Section 15 of the Money Laundering Act will tell you, it makes the issue of money laundering so large that lots of persons can be picked for this. But then the EFC gets this whole thing and sits back because they've not been instigated in court to continue. Maybe a petitioner, the day will actually come when she'll have her day in court. And we hope it doesn't get to be that when she comes, it's a plea bargain. Yes, that's what we see now. And I don't want to mention the names again. I've mentioned one. We just get a plea bargain 2 months, and then we come back to the routine. I hope it doesn't turn out that way.
Now, one of the things that we learned that the EFCC have done is that they have secured the warrant for her arrest and have also proceeded with extradition proceedings. Now, this is not the first time we're hearing about Alice Madueke, Desiane Alice Madueke being extradited. It didn't work the first time. Elema Mudu came out to tell us how she had cancer.
Cancer has gone.
Okay. Not too long ago, we saw her with Ben Bruce, and then she was celebrating her son's graduation or something. Do you think this is going anywhere? Is this just the usual charity? It's 8 years after.
Well, you never can tell. I've seen wonders happen in Nigeria. She could just come in. Nah, but in reality, reading that act, I actually feel that we joke about corruption in Nigeria.
Is it Nigerians that joke about corruption, or we have international communities that feel confident covering up people who actually rob us and run to them?
Well, actually,
Alice Madueke have been living in the UK for over 8 years since that incident.
Yes.
Now, every time this issue comes up,
Yes.
it's beginning to look like I can kill someone in Nigeria, commit a crime in Nigeria, and I run to the UK, and the UK government shouldn't be harboring in the first place.
Oh, that's a different issue. Now,
You think so?
Yes, because when somebody travels to another country,
The crime ceases to exist.
No, the crime doesn't cease to exist. But what makes you to be able to punish that person is your own laws. Take, for instance, the person kills somebody, like you mentioned, in Nigeria and runs to the UK. He has not killed anybody in the UK. It was Nigerian police that have to make the report, move towards extradition, and bring him back to come and prosecute him under the Nigerian laws. For a person to be prosecuted, it has to do with a law written within a jurisdiction. So most of the time, why they leave your jurisdiction is because the UK law won't have the jurisdiction to try them under a Nigerian act.
I don't know if we have all the time to look at this to draw some inference on Ikekwerimadu.
Okay.
I don't know if we have all the time, but maybe you can just try to draw some inference on that. And here is where I'm going to with this. Yes, David Wamini was taken from Nigeria.
Yes.
And was given a visa by the British Embassy.
Yes.
No questions raised. You agree to whatever the former Deputy Senate President wrote to you as to what he was going to do in the UK. Donation of test kidney to donate to support Sonia, the daughter, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. On getting there, one thing led to the other. The boy probably changed his mind, and issues went from 0 to 100 real quick. And now we're hearing that, it's become a crime that was committed in the UK. I'm coming. The things that Desiane supposedly stole from Nigeria, allegedly stole from Nigeria, where is it?
Well,
So can we begin to, I'm glad I'm glad I'm pulling you from, so can we begin to look at some of these international pacts?
yeah.
Can we begin to have a conversation? Maybe not now, but do you think it's become ripe But you keep hearing Abacha loot, you keep hearing Swiss this, you keep hearing Paris this, you keep hearing this. Why should our money and everything that we should be having for a supposedly rich but poor country that is depending on loan from from the World Bank and what have you, to ensure that we run our economy or run the country as a matter of fact, to build infrastructure, we need to borrow A, B, C, D from several countries. Meanwhile, people steal from us and lodge this money into this country. So can we begin to talk about the international pacts we have with some of these countries and how much this is impacting us positively or negatively? We think we are right for that conversation.
Well, I think that conversation, it is a necessary thing that needs to come up. But then my challenge is with African countries is this. Why do we want to shift the responsibility to these communities, to these European countries?
They harbor our people. An African president who is sick and shaky and not in position to rule runs to any of these countries and they accepted. Then they ruled the African country from wherever they are. If these foreign countries, international communities, are not safe haven for some of the politicians, for a lot of these people, I don't think we'll be having the conversation we're having. So should we now look at the international pacts we have with the pacts we have with these countries again?
Maybe we should, but then let me bring a quick one here. When I said Nigeria seems to be joking with issues of financial crime, what is the maximum punishment for money laundering, for instance? Section 15, 7 years. Now that's somebody, irrespective of the amount, 7 years. That's the same punishment for somebody who steals 2,000 naira from another person. And if you do it by force, it becomes robbery or armed robbery. It takes you to 21 years. But money laundering, where there's any, Alison, for instance, has been accused of, and if you look at it, you have over 70 or thereabouts million naira and dollars and all of the rest. It's 7 years. So you see the challenge. But move over to Japan, the Asian countries. It is capital punishment. The person dies. There's no grammar around it. Go to Malaysia. These people are killed once they are discovered. So why can't we have, if we have serious penalty on these matters, when they run, they will come back one day. But if we take the responsibility and say, look, European countries, when these people come, send them back to us. We break this link so that you can bring them back to us. We have a pact in this regard and all of that. If you keep doing that, you'll be shifting responsibilities. And it has various implications internationally.
Okay, let's quickly run through the last one. So, the organized labor have announced its suspension of its planned nationwide indefinite strike action. In a memorandum of understanding signed on Monday by the NLC President Joe Ajero and General Secretary Emmanuel Uwaja, as well as the TUC President Festus Osifo and Secretary General Nuhu Turo, the 3-page document was also signed by the Minister of Labor and Employment, Simon Lalong, Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Dr. Kiruka Onyejocha, and the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris. The decisions came at the end of an hours-long meeting between the federal government, NLC, and the TUC on Monday. Well, several matters arising from that meeting. The federal government
also grant a wage award of 35,000 naira only to
Okay, so the federal government also grants a wage award of 35,000 only to all federal government workers beginning from the month of September, pending when a new national minimum wage is expected to have being signed into law. Another arrival at that meeting is that a minimum wage committee shall be in this agreement. Another is federal government suspends collection of value-added tax on diesel for 6 months beginning from October 2023. Again, that the federal government accepts to vote 100 billion naira for the provision of high-capacity CNG buses for mass transit in Nigeria. Provisions are also being made for initial 55,000 CNG bus conversion kits to kick-start on an auto gas conversion program, whilst work is ongoing on state-of-the-art CNG stations nationwide. The rollout and plans to implement various tax incentive measures for private sector and the general public. Also, on the leadership crisis rocking the National Union of Road Transport Workers purported proscription of our road transport employees, the federal government commits to handling labor matters in line with relevant international labor organization conventions and Nigerian Labor Acts. A resolution of the ongoing impasse is expected by all before October 13. Also, the issue of outstanding salaries and wages of tertiary education workers in federal-owned educational institutions is being referred to Ministry of Engagement. Also, the federal government commits to pay 25,000 per month for 3 months, starting from October 2023 to 15 million households, including vulnerable pensioners. I want to stop here and quickly come to you. There are several factors that came from the board. That particular aspect where it said that the federal government will be giving 25,000 per month for 3 months, starting from October 2023 to 15 million households, including vulnerable pensioners. Help me understand what this aims at. Remember the amount it was initially at the beginning? Okay. Well, we've arrived at 25,000.
Well, I think I was time ahead of 8,000 naira.
That's where we started off from, when the first loan was taken.
Now we are coming to 25,000. And I always ask, what is 25,000 to a household?
You're not happy that it was increased to 25,000 from 8,000?
I don't even know how I'm going to benefit from it.
No, wait, you don't need it.
I don't need it.
It's not for you.
Thank God. Okay. Now, but the truth of the matter is, I see this as a joke.
Okay. Why?
Now, during the pandemic, they said some monies were going around. And then they were feeding families and everything.
And school feeding.
Meanwhile, there were no schools. And then we know how the whole thing ended. Or maybe it has not ended. They are still investigating. Not heard the last of it. They have started again, want to give 25,000. We will still hear them out at the end of the day. And meanwhile, I don't understand why federal government should share money. Why share money? What is the issue with Africans and sharing of money? Why not, look, go to the secondary school, go to the public institutions. You are increasing school fees. Somebody was to enter school, say, our daughter just gained admission the other day. And federal government public school for nursing, says she's to pay about 500 and something thousand naira to be able to start her education. What is the salary? Minimum wage is 35,000 naira. And the daughter's school fees is 500 and something thousand naira to be able to start. So what are we talking about? Is it the same person you want to give 25,000 naira to? To do what? Why not use this to reduce school fees for institutions? Why not use this to pay WAEC fees, subsidized? The last time they came and said some states' WAEC results have not been released because the state governments are not paying the WAEC fees. Why not channel these funds into those areas?
A quick one because of our time. So, if you're spending all of this money, what exactly did you remove subsidy? Do you have idea? I mean, if the government of Nigeria if this is what Labour has been negotiating, but between the Labour and the government right now, we are trying to figure out what was the essence of pulling up the subsidy and we're landing at the point where we are. Does it make any sense now to you?
In all of
or maybe to anyone out there to help us understand what this is about?
In all of these negotiations, you've not heard of refinery.
I didn't see, but yesterday said that they're under pressure to make sure that the Warri and the Port Harcourt refinery resumes by December.
And we've not had a a committee set up. We know how much of the subsidy money has been put into that to make sure it starts working immediately. We've not heard of that. What we are talking about is how you share 25 to 15 million. And we know how Nigeria works. May God help us. By the time we finish all of this, they will set up a committee has been set up to share the money. We now set up a committee to look into the committee that was set up to share the money. And then another committee will be set up to investigate the committee that was set up to investigate the committee that shared the money. So and then each of these committees have allowances, steal from the money. So I think we just need to get serious. There's no need to share money to households. That's my view.
So the total number of federal civil servants in Nigeria, just a quick wrap up, everyone. Total number of federal civil servants in Nigeria is 720,000. So everyone do this sum, 35,000 times 760, so 20,000 in 6 months. Maybe someone out there can help us understand why exactly are we doing this? If pulling off the subsidy that has brought us to where we are, and now we're going back to do all of this. So that's just where I'm leaving it off. I don't know where you're leaving it off, but I want to know how much sense this makes. Any idea?
They deemed it fit to go into this, and then we'll have more of this conversation.
Almost definitely, because we're talking about 720,000. That's 35,000 naira times 720,000 persons, and then you're going to do